Will British police arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he comes to Britain?
Now, what you're about to hear, it's stunning. It goes a long way to demonstrate the double standard that the global community and Africa's geopolitical partners have seen among its Western backers. So it's shameful what you're about to hear. It's a straightforward question, the most simplest question I've heard this year. Will British police arrest the Prime Minister of the country of Israel? Yes or no? Let's take a listen and we will dive into more specifics as to the reason why other countries are watching closely and they are not foolish. Let's roll the clip.
Well, that's not a matter for the Home Secretary. The International Criminal Court is, of course, independent. It has its processes that it needs to follow. In the overwhelming majority of International Criminal Court cases, they never become a matter for the British legal process, for the British law enforcement or for the British government.
No, but if he comes here... sorry, Home Secretary, you are in charge of the police. You are in charge of the police, and you can send a very strong signal to the police. I appreciate you're saying that police are operationally independent of government, but come on, if you send a strong signal to the police saying he should be arrested when he comes here, it's likely that he would be arrested. If you send the opposite signal, he probably won't be arrested. What is your personal view? Is it right for police to potentially arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he comes to the United Kingdom?
I think what's happening in the world is that we've not even touched the bottom with regards to this particular interview. We will get back to this interview to get that particular question. Remember, this is the Home Secretary of the United Kingdom. It's interesting how the Global South and other geopolitical partners are observing very closely. When the ICC issued the warrant of arrest to then Sudan President Omar al-Bashir, Britain was really fast to basically say we're going to arrest him. And when Vladimir Putin was the president of Russia, was issued with a warrant of arrest, they quickly moved swiftly. We're going to arrest him the moment he comes to the UK, without any doubt. Now, it's interesting how Britain cannot simply answer. It's shameful, and the double standard is so exposed to an extent that it borders some strategic geopolitical partners around the world, political analysts, and pundits around the world are observing how the so-called UK law-abiding government that promotes the rule of law cannot answer a simple question. Let's go back to that particular question from this brilliant journalism that we are watching.
Well, I've just finished the point I was just going to finish a second ago, Paul, which is that in the event that International Criminal Court cases do become a matter for the UK, which is rare, but if they do, in those circumstances, there are legal processes and government processes that need to be followed, and they need to be done in the proper way. And that's why it would not be appropriate for me as Home Secretary to comment on speculative processes, because it's important that those are followed. But look, there's a wider issue here. The International Criminal Court has to do its processes. We respect their independence. But there's also the UK foreign policy approach, which is that we continue to believe that we need a ceasefire in Gaza. We've obviously seen significant challenges really right across the Middle East ever since the Hamas terrorist attack on Israel on October the 7th last year. We continue to pursue a ceasefire in Gaza.
Now, this is fascinating. You could imagine that she would have just come out straight and say what is suspected following the rulings from the ICC. But she goes back to the playbook of where each time this particular question is asked, among other strategic and global partners, they go back to the October 6th. Make no mistake. I said, make no mistake, what Hamas did is totally unacceptable to the Jewish people. However, what Israel has done in Gaza is despicable. And to ignore that part and not saying that it's tantamount to genocide and deprivation and causing pain, the ICC could not just jump all of a sudden to issue the warrant of arrest. Now, by not answering the question and going back to October 6, it sends a wrong signal to other countries who are observing what's going on, how Western governments are talking on both sides of their mouth. And it is shameful and very disrespectful to international law. Now, this is in understanding that every country's got their allies, but if a Home Secretary cannot say yes or no in a critical thing that the world is watching, especially global South countries, I think Britain just hit the bottom. The most brilliant question came again. These journalists, I think they are really trained. She dived into the question to bring back the Home Secretary to answer the question. Let's listen to what she has to say in this particular case.
Okay, I mean, Number 10 have said that they would comply with the ICC and they would comply with that recommendation if he was to be arrested. So are you in disagreement with Number 10? Are you saying that Britain wouldn't comply? Or are you just saying we're kicking it into the long grass?
No, I'm saying we respect the independence of the International Criminal Court. We respect international law. That is what we have always made clear. That is what Number 10, the government, the Prime Minister, have made clear. All I'm saying to you is in the majority of cases, these don't become a matter for the UK. In the cases where they do, there are proper legal processes and government processes that have to be followed. And it would just be wrong for me as Home Secretary to comment in advance of any process on any individual case.
So we're not going to get a yes or no on that, Home Secretary. What about assisted dying? We all one of the last cabinet members.
There's a proper process, and you would recognise that.
Okay.
Now, you can hear very clearly that Number 10, which is where the British Prime Minister leads, they've come out very clear and indicated that if the Prime Minister of Israel happened to come to the UK, he will be arrested. They've made their position clear. And the politics behind this now, I don't understand how someone that you expect as a Home Secretary, who is the arm of one arm of the British government department that should enforce such laws, the representative or the leader in that particular department or ministry comes out and start kind of cause a lot of controversy. Can say this, cannot say that. It means the government in the UK is sending the wrong signal. And it is shameful that Karim Khan, who is a British lawyer and also trained in the UK, and you would expect that it's important to get to understand this, because this particular lawyer is a British citizen, and I think he's made it pretty clear where they stand by issuing the warrant of arrest to Vladimir Putin, to the leaders of Hamas, and also the former president of Sudan and other leaders in the continent of Africa. So when it comes to this, and now Britain is talking on this, so this should send a strong signal to the continent of Africa and those countries in the global south who hurriedly pick up their leaders and start sending them to The Hague to be tried. So this is opening a new chapter that it's going to send the wrong communication. Countries should wake up that is causing the problem of credibility for the ICC's jurisdiction, and the United States has questioned and say that the ICC does not have the jurisdiction. So it is interesting how these global powers are taking different positions at different times. So how shameful it is. So to close this episode, let's just go back to the original question where the journalist framed it as the world's known that this has actually happened. And let's listen to how she kind of like approached this particular part of that conversation, and then we will close this episode.
All right, well, another big call for the police and for the government, indeed, is whether or not the UK would arrest the Prime Minister of Israel, because the International Criminal Court has now put out an arrest warrant for him and also his former Defence Secretary, also the leader of Hamas, although we're not sure whether or not he's even still alive. But the way this works is that the International Criminal Court can't arrest him. UK police would have to arrest him if he came here, or indeed other police if he went to other nations. Will British police arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he comes to Britain?
Well, that's not a matter for the Home Secretary. The International Criminal Court is, of course, independent. It has its processes that it needs to follow. In the overwhelming majority of International Criminal Court cases, they never become a matter for the British legal process, for the British law enforcement, or for the British government.
No, but if he comes here, sorry, Home Secretary, you are in charge of the police. You are in charge of the police, and you can send a very strong signal to the police. I appreciate you're saying that police are operationally independent of government, but come on, if you send a strong signal to the police saying he should be arrested when he comes here, it's likely that he would be arrested. If you send the opposite signal, he probably won't be arrested. What is your personal view? Is it right for police to potentially arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he comes to the United Kingdom?
Well, I've just finished the point I was just going to finish a second ago, Paul, which is that in the event that International Criminal Court cases do become a matter for the UK, which is rare, but if they do, in those circumstances, there are legal processes and government processes that need to be followed, and they need to be done in the proper way. And that's why it would not be appropriate for me as Home Secretary to comment on speculative processes, because it's important that those are followed.
We want to thank you for watching. Hopefully we've informed you with regards to the strategic problems that's going on around the world and why the ICC's credibility is on the line, and the reason why the continent of Africa and global South countries should wake up and become smart in dealing with their geopolitical partners. We want to thank you for watching. We are looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.